All right, y'all, let's talk about the grief that you may experience when you get a late diagnosis of ADHD. And especially when you realize that the solution for ADHD, or the way that we stop ADHD, is by giving somebody a pill that you have to take every single day, which can be a problem, but this pill can dramatically improve your life. In fact, in my opinion, I think that stimulants or whatever you're prescribed for ADHD, but I'm talking about stimulants specifically, it's probably the number one thing that you can do to drastically and dramatically improve your outcomes with ADHD. And when you get diagnosed later in life and you think to yourself, wow, maybe if I had just had some Vyvanse or some Adderall or Ritalin or even Wellbutrin, I wouldn't have had to have repeated the sixth grade. I wouldn't have had to be behind all through high school. Maybe my GPA would have been so poor. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten to that relationship which set me back for 10 years. The difficult thing about late diagnosis is that you think back to your formative years and you ask yourself, you're like, all right, so I was always kind of spaced out. I was all over the place, and my whole life I showed the symptoms of ADHD. And you mean to tell me that not a single person caught it? Not a single Mickey Ficky saw me struggling and decided to help? And I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 26, so I felt that TikTok that I said at the beginning of this video on a personal level. I knew I had ADHD going back to even second grade. I would see kids go to the nurse's station and they take these pills and they come back and they'd be these cyborg robots where all of a sudden, instead of laughing and joking with me, they start to do their assignments and they're locked in and they're focused. And I would just be daydreaming, thinking to myself, trying to figure out what we're going to have for lunch, or trying to, think about if that girl across the classroom likes me, or what type of shoes am I wearing tomorrow. Just my brain was all over the place. You have to give yourself some grace, and also your caregivers. If you can forgive them, because a lot of times parents or caregivers or teachers, they may miss ADHD because they don't know what ADHD is supposed to look like. When people think of ADHD, they think of the hyperactive little boy who's like tapping his feet or making noises or throwing the little spitballs across the classroom to the other kids. But ADHD, there's three types. You can have the hyperactive and impulsive type, but yeah, you can also have the disorganized type where you're daydreaming, you're forgetting things, you're in your own world. You're probably silently struggling and behind on a lot of things and drowning in schoolwork and assignments and responsibilities, but not knowing that this is ADHD, right? You have the hyperactive type, then you have the inattentive type, and you have the combined type. And the way I describe ADHD online, I keep telling people, ADHD is a condition that makes it hard for you to regulate, number one, your mood, and it makes it hard for you to regulate your attention, number two. And when I say regulate your attention, it doesn't mean that, I can't focus on anything. It's more so of, I got to get this assignment due. I got to get this discussion post in. It's due Friday at midnight. And for whatever reason, I cannot focus on that thing until Thursday at 11:37 p.m. when you have 23 minutes left. And that's when the hyperfocus kicks in out of urgency. And then you crank out the most amazing 3 paragraphs of your life. And you get an A, and then you just keep going. And because you're accustomed to doing things at the last minute, you just say, oh, this is just my gift. Not knowing that you have a problem with prioritizing things. You have a problem with starting things, seeing it all the way to completion, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of guilt that comes, and even shame that comes from a late diagnosis of ADHD and going through that loop of questions where you're asking yourself, man, I could have done a lot better if somebody would have just intervened and helped me out. And it's important to feel those feelings. Like, you have to go through it, feel what you have to feel. And if you can, this is hard, but if you can, do your best to assume positive intent and, to move forward. And now that you know that you have ADHD, maybe now you go get an assessment if possible. You go get help, whether that's lifestyle modifications, therapy, stimulants like Adderall, Vyvanse, so on and so forth. And just know that even with a late diagnosis, you can still shine. You can still thrive in life. I'm a living Example of that, I struggled through all through school. I never wanted to pay attention. I always wanted to see what the girls were doing. I wanted to see what the other guys were doing, what trouble they were getting into. And I struggled in high school. I only got into one college. But fortunately, I applied to nursing school just once. And that was like my last lifeline. Um, I graduated nursing school in 2013 at the University of West Alabama. I won most outstanding student. I did some time in the neuro ICU after that. I did get fired for my first nursing job in the neuro ICU. We don't talk about that a lot. I probably should speak on it more online. But I found my footing in psych. Started working at a psych hospital as a psych RN. Went back for my bachelor's degree. Then I went back for my nurse practitioner degree, which was combined with a doctorate. That's how the whole, Dr. Kojo thing started. I was able to go to Virginia, Southern Virginia, and do forensic psychiatry for 16 months. And while I was doing that, I was fooling around with this app called TikTok. Posted a couple of videos. The rest is history. Now we're approaching 4 million followers across all platforms. I get to make content and do what I enjoy for a living while also helping people and people who are struggling with the same things that I'm struggling with, because I'm still struggling with ADHD. I just manage it much better, but I'm aware that I have to have these systems in place to ensure that I can actually get things done and not just think about getting things done all day. But I am where I am today because I caught a lot of lucky breaks, I will say that. But when I got my diagnosis at 26, I accepted it. I got the right help, and things took off from there. So it's never too late to turn your life around or to put things in place. So ADHD doesn't have to hold you back. Will it make life harder? It's gonna make life harder. Let's not lie about that. Let's keep it real. It will make life harder, but once we're able to put systems in place, we can do so much better. And you may still have those thoughts that come every now and then. I have them, where I ask myself, I'm like, man, if somebody had given me some ADHD medications in high school, maybe I would have had time to pursue other things. But either way, this is the way that my story went, and it's led me to where I am today, and I've been able to reframe things and really come from a place of gratitude. So just know that ADHD is an explanation, it's not an excuse, and we can push past the guilt, we can push past the shame, and create a life for ourselves that we're proud of, a life that we have always wanted. So I know it's hard, but never give up the hope.